Cinemas on COVID, Part 3. In case this is the first video in the series that you're looking at, I have been going to cinemas in Trinidad and comparing their COVID protocols to the protocols posted by the Ministry of Health in June 2020. So parts 1 and 2 have been Caribbean cinemas, 8 and Caribbean cinemas, 10. But if you had to choose to go back to watch one, I would recommend going back to part 1 because I actually find the guidance document on the Ministry of Health's website and show you, reference it in going through that cinema and how the protocols were actually adopted. So part 3 is Movie Towne C3. So at the box office, there are glass barriers. I see the social distancing markers. I don't recall seeing any signage though. Yeah. It's a 2D, right? Thank you. So I use the staircase to make my way to the theaters upstairs. Okay. So next stop is the concession stand. So there are social distancing markers at the concession stand. And I also see glass barrier at the cashier stations. I don't recall seeing any COVID-19 related signage, whether digital or otherwise, at the concession stand though. But before I purchased anything, the concessionaire actually gave me hand sanitizer. Before adding condiments to my food, I was able to sanitize my hands, which was good. So before entering the theaters, I'm actually able to sanitize again. Okay, thank you. The table was actually a really nice touch though. I left disappointed because I thought they were going to take my temperature at that point. But I make contact with the handrails going down the escalator. My other option would have been the elevator, but I still have to touch the buttons. So again, I am forced to make contact in opening the door to the theater. So I'm looking to sanitize after touching both the escalator and the theater door.
It's a skill like cooking. Some are naturally good at it, some are not and need extra help. Good thing there are options out there like Alta. It won't be easy, but it will be with. Would you be interested in finding out more about Alta?
I'm ready. Tell me more.
So it appears that some rows are being blocked out for social distancing.
Alta tutors take their time.
And just observing the non-fabric seats, which should make sanitizing that much easier. So this was the pre-show announcement.
One of our staff members if you need assistance. In the case of a fire or natural disaster, listen out for instructions from authorized Movie Towne personnel who will ensure that everyone exits the building safely. Always pay movie experience.
Movie done, time to bust up. Just disposing of my garbage. I could really do with some hand sanitizer. Thankfully, I don't have to touch the door. So, washrooms. I don't notice any hand sanitizer stations outside the washroom. I don't think there was signage inside there either. So by default, I wanted to exit the cinema the same way I entered, and I would have been allowed to do that, but I decided to do the right thing and go back downstairs through the correct exit. So, in terms of areas of improvement, I would lay claim that this is solely my opinion. There wasn't any hand sanitizer stations at the ticket booth as specifically outlined in the guidelines, but you have to understand that the ticket booth for Movie Towne in C3 is within a mall setting, so I would have had to open a door to get into there. It's not outdoor, so I would have sanitized on my way into that entrance door before I even made it to the ticket booth. So I guess having a hand sanitizer station there probably didn't make much sense. The safety briefing was excellent, but it didn't contain anything that was COVID related. Maybe I got to the theater late and there was some other COVID specific information, but for my time in the theater, I didn't see anything COVID related on the screen. And if I were to make a suggestion, I think because Trinidadians are just naturally late, just play it. The last thing before a movie is screened should be those protocols. Don't put it too early because people are not going to be in the theater to actually make it that effective. Is something wrong with me? Because 3 out of 3 so far, no thermal scanning. I have to get thermal scan to go into Pennywise. And in no time in Pennywise, I taken off my mask to eat any popcorn or drink any soft drink. I was not thermal scanned. At every checkpoint, I'm rolling up my sleeve in anticipation that you're going to beep. Nothing. I don't know if they had one and didn't use it. I didn't know if they didn't have one. But I wasn't, in my experience, at that particular time that I went, on that particular day, I was not screened for temperature. So the guideline suggests that you have ushers to guide you to your seat. I think it's putting a measure of responsibility on the theater itself to ensure social distancing within the theater. But there were no ushers that did that. And remember, you have to think back. There were no pre-assigned seats either. So it's not to say that I made a commitment to sit in a middle section. The cinema is placing it on my judgment to socially distance. Yes, you can't control people to that extent, but at the same time, I think it helps. And a little later on, I'm gonna go into why I think ushering is so critical, but there weren't any ushers to guide me to my seat when I entered the theater. I mean, I have to say it, but the more cinemas that I've visited and just seeing the layout and how much points of contact that I actually have, I probably may have a different opinion about certain measures. One of them in particular was hand sanitizer stations near the entrance to the washroom. Now, there is no physical door to push to enter the washroom. So one would question, why is there even need for hand sanitizer? I think it serves the purpose in general of having a hand sanitizer station in public, and I think the public's eye is more so drawn to a washroom per se type setting to get some sort of sanitizer, because you have to understand that there's a long corridor of doors and theaters. So to spot a hand sanitizer station in between theaters may be a bit of a challenge. But if you put one near a washroom, people are more inclined to probably sanitize on the way. So while it doesn't make sense for the washroom per se, just having a sanitizer station in that general vicinity, I think, would add value. These are just some general comments. It's not so much areas of improvement per se. They didn't violate any of the COVID guidelines in what I'm about to say. Movie Towne chose to keep their communal condiment station. Now, kudos to the hand sanitizer station that is there, but at the same time, there's nobody to actually ensure that you sanitize your hands before you touch any of the pumps to get your ketchup, mustard, whatever. So that is one thing. Do people actually sanitize before they touch those things? Maybe, maybe not. Another thing is crowding. After I purchase my things from the concession stand, if it is, not all people that purchase stuff from the concession stand are going to use condiments, because popcorn doesn't need anything that they have over there. And they give you the napkin and the straw so you don't take it for yourself. But I could foresee, like, Wonder Woman hasn't opened yet. And I could foresee, even though cinemas are at 50% capacity, that on an opening day, let's say, there may be, I'm just saying, a backlog in traffic flow at the condiment stand, that I think disposable condiments, like another franchise did, may be a more viable option. But I could understand in terms of being reasonably practicable, trying to cut costs, probably even trying to reduce the amount of waste you produce, you'd probably stick with that measure, which is within the guidelines. But still, it's up to you to decide if you want to actually touch those pumps. But there are things in place. I don't know what the sanitizing procedure is for the condiment pumps. That is something in the background operation, but it's just something to bear in mind. In the same train of thought, we see the good old reusable, those black trays that fit in the cup holder. Again, background operations, they're supposed to have a rigid sanitizing procedure for those trays, and we trust and hope that those are being done. Those are things that maybe we may not be able to see. But again, ideally, just like the other franchise would have used disposable boxes, tray type containers, this would have been a welcome addition, but reasonably practicable, costs, controls. I understand how it goes. So Movie Towne actually reserves rows, which ensures spacing between rows, social distancing between rows. I think it uses a measure of discretion, or places that onus on the guests themselves to seat, I think, at least 2 seats away from each other on either side. So that's all well and good, but I'm thinking more into it with the low turnouts that we've been having. It makes me question rather what exactly are the sanitation procedures for the theater in between movies. One of the guidelines asked for adequate space between screenings so that the theater can be sanitized. That's good. But if it is that I am allowing, but I can't see how it will be practical to sanitize an entire theater and then have another screening in the same day, as opposed to if you had a pre-assigned seat, you would know exactly where to quickly sanitize in order for enough time for the next screening. Or is it that they sanitize the whole theater with 4 patrons that just looked at the movie? In my experience, that's what happened. So I'm not too sure what the sanitizing procedure is in between movies, and I don't know, like, that's a lot. Like if you were physically spraying the seats and wiping them down. You need to allow for enough time for it to dry. And I'm just thinking about manpower. How long would it take one or even two people to wipe an entire theater? If it is you knew that there were pre-assigned seats, you just go to those seats and sanitize those seats. You sanitize all the handrails and you should be pretty much okay. But that's just me thinking about what goes on behind the scenes based on what happens when I buy a ticket. So that's it for my review. It was short and sweet basically. But before you go, again, there's new content on my blog website. Go to thehonestguest.com. The name of the post is What COVID-19 Taught Us About the Hierarchy of Controls. So definitely go check that out. The public has been made more aware of how safety professionals actually control risk. Some people might think that it is actually random, but it's actually very systematic. And it may be a little bit more information on how risks are controlled in the organization you may work for. So definitely go check that out. Stick around for part 4, which, I mean, the only one out of the 4 main cinemas is Movie Towne in Port of Spain. But that has me thinking, I don't think I want to stop this series at part 4. So maybe after part 4, I'll tell you what's happening after that. So stick around, subscribe if you want to, so you don't miss part 4. And until next time.